Jesus chose 12 men. They weren't kings. They weren't priests. They were ordinary, average men. But he knew these 12 would serve a special purpose in the kingdom of heaven. Jesus saw their potential. Fishermen, a tax collector, a zealot, men with ordinary jobs who would become the 12 apostles.
Barry, we've talked about a lot of events in the life of Jesus. We've talked about his birth, his infancy, his childhood. But over in Mark chapter 1, the next phase of his life and ministry starts. Mark chapter 1, verse 16, it says that passing alongside the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and Andrew, the brother of Simon, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And Jesus said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you become fishers of men." And of course, he calls a couple of other men from there to become followers of him. Where can we go to see places connected to those events?
All those events took place in the region of Galilee. And so I'd like to take you to some of those places. There's a Roman road that I have read is still exposed that stretches from Nazareth to Capernaum. I've never been there, and I'd really like to try to find it. Next, I'd like to take you out on the Sea of Galilee. A boat ride out there will help reinforce a lot of these places in your mind. Capernaum is another wonderful spot. Jesus lived there. This is where a number of the disciples lived at the time. A visit there will be something you'll always remember.
Imagining a place in Galilee that you haven't been is kind of shocking. I really want to go try to find this Roman road. Well, right now we're leaving Nazareth. We're trying to get to a remaining exposed section of first century Roman road at a location called GOLANI Junction. There's an actual current road that goes around there. The modern road has been reconfigured, so we're still trying to figure out exactly how to get there, but we're supposed to be able to put our feet on some actual first century road that Jesus would have used when he left Nazareth.
All right, so that's what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to
Hoof it.
Yeah, we're going to have to hoof it. I have seen this place on Google Maps and I've read stories about it, and I wanted to go see a Roman road that Jesus walked on. It was no problem. All we had to do was
over that barbed wire fence and through that field and over that hill.
2 guardrails, and after about 20 minutes,
past the dead horse.
There we are. During the first century, of course, the Romans controlled this area, and they built a series of roads that just dotted the landscape.
It's a ruined road, and you have all these weeds, you have all these thorns and thistles popping up.
This is a road that actually stretched all the way from the Mediterranean Sea to the Sea of Galilee and even farther beyond than that.
And so Jesus would have left Nazareth and come down this way toward the Sea of Galilee, and over the hill there to the left and over that and down, he would have come out at the bottom of the Arbel Pass and then continued around the north side of the Sea of Galilee to Capernaum.
It would have.
And behind us, so heading west, we would have Nazareth, the hometown of Jesus.
Yes.
So from Nazareth to Capernaum, what's the distance?
Well, it depends on exactly where the road meandered through here, but I would say somewhere between 20 and 25 miles.
We're walking on history right now.
We are. If Jesus and his disciples during the time as they were walked between Nazareth and Capernaum, they probably would have come down this road.
Which is amazing.
Yes.
Part of the culture in Israel is there's history everywhere. There's history underneath you, there's history around you. Several hundred yards behind this gas station, there's a first century road. In the US, we think something a couple hundred years is old. And over here, they've got things millennia old.
That they don't call old.
But they don't call old because there's stuff older than that just around the corner.
Sure.
So it redefines in your mind what old is. It gives you a fresh perspective.
One of the things I remember is walking on the road and being able to see the hill in the distance, and knowing that these are probably the same views that the early disciples had as they walked on this same road. Nothing has changed about that over the last 2,000 years, walking literally in their footsteps.
It was an adventure. I mean, getting up there and walking on the road was an adventure, and it was worth it to be able to stand on that piece of history. I've been looking forward to coming to GINOSAR the whole trip.
Yeah, what's cool in here is they have this boat that they found is actually from the 1st century.
We're in the museum, getting ready to walk in and look at the boat, and we meet Mr. Lufon, one of the 2 brothers that helped find the boat. So we're here at GINOSAR
Yes.
with Mr. UV Lufon,
Yeah.
one of the 2 brothers who found the ancient boat
Yeah.
back in 1986.
Yes.
How did that feel when you found the boat?
I feel like I'm a fly. One year I'm fly because I'm a child dreaming maybe one day the water going and I find something, maybe boat. And after I find it, all the time you're thinking about it and you find what you dreaming. I don't touch the air, I fly. And she changed my life because before I don't believe the God. After I find it, everything changed inside. And now I believe it. And because I believe it all the time, day after day, the good things come for me.
Okay.
Because he changed all the area from something good. You see people coming.
Yes.
Because the boat is here.
And the boat is beautiful. I mean, a 1st century boat, and you all did a wonderful job preserving it, getting it over here,
Yes.
and sharing it with the world. In 1986, there was the drought. The water went
Yeah.
back from the shore. That's how you saw it and found it.
Yes.
What was the process like getting it out of the mud and over here?
We are find it in the spring, and the raining not stop it. And the level go and go. We are afraid they covered, so we are digging 12 day and night, very, very quickly, in the night too, because it's not stop raining, we are must...
You were putting
Yes.
sandbags down,
Yes.
trying to keep the water away.
can.
And then when you got it over here to preserve it, because the wood was so fragile, you were going through
Yes.
a process of solidifying, making the wood hard again.
After she stay in the wax, warm wax, 10 years, the wax go inside the wood, the water go outside. We are checking carbon 14. She is 2,000 years, the
Yes.
time from Jesus.
Behind us, there's this example of polyurethane. You coated it
Yes.
and you floated it on the lake around.
After 2,000 years, she
so,
flew.
so after 2,000 years, that boat came out of the mud and
Yes.
was floating on the sea again.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Everything is.
It was a blessing. It was a
Yes,
blessing to be a
yes.
part of that.
The moment we find the boat, the archaeology came, clean pieces, and said, she is very old. The weather changed. It's very strong rain starting. Stop quickly. The sun go out. It's big rainbow. Go outside. She's so strong. She's double rainbow.
Yeah.
And we are feeling this boat belonged from somebody before. Now we give it to us. I call him Peace Boat.
Yes.
She changed all the area
Yes.
from something good.
Could you take us to go see the boat? Could we go through and see it?
Come.
All right. That would be great.
Okay, now you see slowly, slowly she's go. And after you see how, look, the wax out, now we are clean it.
Uh-huh.
She stay, I think, 1 year, you see?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, UV.
Tova,
Thank you.
toda.
I mean, it's not something that, compared to the Eiffel Tower, I mean, it's not that impressive. It's not that big. What's impressive about it is how old it is, how long it was preserved, the fact that they were able to harden the wood and keep it from disintegrating further, the fact that it's connected to the lake, it's connected to the 1st century, it's connected to the time of Christ. That's what impresses you about it.
It's a darkened room because they're trying to protect the boat. And it's really only about a third of the boat, the part of the boat that was concealed in mud for 2,000 years.
You know, growing up in the Pacific Northwest, around water, you know, the Pacific Ocean, you get on boats all the time. You know, you go crab fishing, you get on ferries to take you from one place to the other, you dock your car. But to come and see this boat and see something that was connected to the time and the life of Jesus is just extra special. To see something that helps you visualize what several of his apostles might have worked in, it helps you picture that so much clearer. And I think there's tremendous value in seeing the boat and making that connection.
Especially if you know something about the Sea of Galilee during the first century, because at that time there were about 16 ports all the way around the lake. And so there was constantly traffic going across the lake. It's not really that way anymore. Most of the boats that are out there are tourist boats, but then the lake was much more active, and this would have been the type of boat that would have been all over the water.
So to imagine being in something like that when a windstorm came down, or imagine being in something like that at night and not being able to make headway, would make me a little bit nervous to be in something that looked like that. And so to see that helps me picture how the disciples might have felt when things like that happen. That ancient boat was really cool.
Yeah, but you couldn't ride on it on the Sea of Galilee today. Let's get on a real boat.
Let's try this out. Being on the boat and passing as close as we did to everything gave great perspective to how close everything is. You know, when I'm reading through the Gospels and I read about Jesus going from Nazareth to Capernaum, or he goes from Capernaum around the side of the sea, in my mind, the spaces are so large, the distances are so large. But to be on the boat in one spot on the sea and do just a little bit of a quarter turn and see all those places. You get Capernaum and you get the Church of the Beatitudes, and you keep going around, and there's GINOSAR with the ancient boat, and there's Mount Arbel with the pass that he would have walked on the Roman road. Just to see all of that in a quarter turn puts into perspective how tightly everything is connected and how close it is. To be here, just passing the Cove of the Sower, it's a Bible student geek out moment to see the natural amphitheater of the cove. It helps you visualize why Jesus got in the boat and put out a little ways as he spoke up to the folks on the hill. It's hard to put into words. Being here and imagining that and seeing that in your mind's eye, not just reading it on a page and going, oh yeah, that happened, but to understand the why. Anybody who's been reading through that and then you see it, that's a geek out moment. To stand here and get perspective of distances and elevations and contours and roads, and it helps the text come alive. These things really happened. It happened in this land, and hopefully we're able to communicate some of that to everybody else as they watch this. One of the boat drivers comes up and throws the net. And he shows us this is how they would have thrown a net when they were fishing in Jesus' day. So you've got Peter and Andrew and James and John, these fishermen that would have fished like this. And then he offers, hey, would you like to throw the net? So yeah, you know, how often do you get a chance to do something like that?
He should not quit his day job.
I think on a scale from 1 to 10, my net throwing's like a 12. Still nothing for lunch. More falafel. It is gorgeous out here today.
It really is. It's a beautiful day here.
So we're at the Sea of Galilee. Why don't you read a little bit from Mark 1?
This is the area where Jesus called his disciples, and in Mark 1 it says, "In passing along the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and Andrew, the brother of Simon, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And Jesus said to them, 'Follow me, and I will make you become fishers of men.' And immediately they left their nets and followed him."
You can really visualize that. It talks a lot about the occupation of these four men. You know, they're fishermen. They're casting their nets, they're cleaning their nets, they're fixing their nets, and you can really see all of that going on right here. You can imagine that really well.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons why it's so nice to see this here at the Sea of Galilee.
About how far would that have happened, where Jesus calls them, how far would that have happened from this spot?
It would have happened somewhere here on the northern shore, so I would say anywhere between a half mile either way of where we're standing right now.
So let's get some perspective then. If I start going around the lake this way a little bit further, what am I going to run into?
Well, this will be the northern shore, and the next big city you'll come to is Capernaum.
Okay, and go in the opposite direction?
Well, we've got the plain of Gennesaret, which would have sat just over that ridge, and there were a number of villages during the first century, including the town of Magdala, which we think is where Mary Magdalene lived. And of course, rising above that, you have Mount Arbel and the Arbel Pass, which would have been the road between the lake and Lower Galilee, where Nazareth is.
So these men, these were common men. The four that we read about, they're fishermen. They have this very average, everyday job, and those are the types of people that Jesus called to be his apostles. What type of fish would they have been fishing for?
Well, most likely they would have been fishing for tilapia, which is a common fish you can pull out of the lake today. They even serve it here in town. You can actually purchase what they call St. Peter's fish.
How about we go try some of that?
That sounds great.
Those fish are huge.
This is tilapia. Tilapia comes out of the Sea of Galilee here, and it's commonly served in a lot of restaurants around here as St. Peter's fish.
Now, is it always served and prepared this way?
Well, you can get it with filleted and things like that, but it's more fun to eat it like this.
Okay. That is really good.
Very good.
I have never eaten fish like this before.
I love coming to Capernaum. Capernaum is one of the favorite places to go in Israel. And the reason is because so many things with regards to Jesus' life happened there. And so it's a great place to go to. It's a great place to visualize exactly where it sits on the sea. When you stand there on the shore, you can actually visualize a little harbor there that boats went in and out of. And no doubt Peter and his fishing partners did all the time.
Well, you think about it from Jesus' perspective. This is the first place that Jesus goes from his family's home in Nazareth. This is his home. This is where he's meeting people. This is where he spends the majority of his time. This is the place where his family comes to get him at one point, thinking that he's lost his mind. And this is the place where he explains, look, my family, my mother, and my brothers are the ones who do the will of my Father. So it's a special place to Jesus, even though eventually it's a place that he ends up condemning because of their lack of belief. One of the standout features of Capernaum is the 4th century synagogue, built on top of the foundation of the 1st century synagogue that Jesus would have used. And so you know right underneath your feet, this is a place where Jesus taught. This is a place where Jesus read from the scrolls. This is a place where so many things happened. And even though you're not in the space, you're above the space. You know that's the area. So there's so much to Capernaum for anybody who's been reading their Gospels. When Jesus was rejected at Nazareth, he came about 25 miles over the north side of the Sea of Galilee to Capernaum.
That's right.
And he makes Capernaum his hometown. We're standing right now in a 4th century synagogue. What's significant about that?
In Luke the 7th chapter it reads, after he had finished all his sayings in the hearings of the people, he entered Capernaum. Now a centurion had a servant who was sick and at the point of death, who was highly valued by him. And when the centurion heard about Jesus, he sent to him elders of the Jews, asking him to come and heal his servant. And when they came to Jesus, they pleaded with him earnestly, saying, he is worthy to have you do this for him, for he loves our nation, and he is the one who built us this synagogue. So we are standing in a 4th century synagogue, but it's on the foundation of a 1st century synagogue, the synagogue that's mentioned here in Luke the 7th chapter.
We know from Mark that this is one of the synagogues that Jesus came and taught in over in Mark chapter 1, where people were just amazed at his teaching.
Yes.
Because he taught as one who had authority, and they were just so impressed with what he was saying and how he was saying it. There's just so many things that happen here. And you mentioned there's significance to the port here.
That's right. Jesus used the port here at Capernaum a number of times as he traveled across the lake,
Right.
going to different places he needed to go to.
Standing here in this synagogue, it's really easy to visualize what it would have been like to have the synagogue be the center of the town.
Sure.
And really easy to visualize what life must have been like. You walk out through the door and you can see the remains of the city. You go down toward the beach, which you could have seen from here as
That's
it
right.
goes down.
This synagogue here would have been just like many other synagogues in the region, in which as you exited, the door always faced Jerusalem.
Okay. And the first century synagogue would have been made out of basalt stone. So it wouldn't have been this white that we're seeing.
That's right.
It would have been a darker black
That's right.
volcanic rock. It's a really neat layout, a very consistent layout.
It really is. From city to city, town to town, they had the same type of synagogue. They may have had little small differences in sizes, but they would have been the same basic layout.
Okay.
See what you have here, little prayer notes in the wall. People will come through here and they'll write down a prayer on a little piece of paper and stick it in the wall. This is reminiscent of what they do in Jerusalem at the Western Wall.
Right.
And so the thought is that prayers that are put into the wall will be sent directly to God.
Because they see this as a holy site or a sacred site.
That's right. It looks like they picked up the practice here in Capernaum.
I mean, these pieces of paper, some of them are so tiny, and they're cramming them into these little nooks and crannies and cracks.
Every little available space will be taken up.
One of the things that makes Capernaum special is it's a place that's been developed and preserved really well. I mean, you can see the outlines of the first century streets, of the alleyways, of the houses. One of the features there is this very rich tradition identifying Peter's house, the probable location where Peter lived, where Jesus would have healed Peter's mother-in-law. A very strong, reliable tradition. But to be able to look at that spot and think, that probably happened there.
It's a little odd when you first see it because
Yeah.
about 20, 25 years ago, they actually built a church building over it. And so what you have underneath there are the remains of a Byzantine church, and down at the bottom are the remains of a first century dwelling. And so the thinking is that, well, if the Byzantines so many centuries ago thought there was some importance to this place, this may be the house of Peter.
There's a verse in the Gospels that talks about how Jesus taught in the synagogues in Galilee. There's this very vague, there are multiple synagogues, multiple towns. We don't know specifically which one Jesus taught in. But Capernaum we do. We know that Jesus taught in the first century synagogue in Capernaum. So to have that specificity and standing right above it is just, it's unique, it's special, it was beautiful. In this episode of Following the Messiah, we've tried to focus on the men that Jesus called to be his apostles. He called ordinary men with ordinary occupations, these fishermen, this tax collector, in order to accomplish the great goal of spreading the message about the coming kingdom of God, that it had arrived and that Jesus was here. Jesus and the gospel, they do the same thing today. They call ordinary people. What Paul says over in 1 Corinthians 1 is he doesn't call the most popular, he doesn't call the strongest, but he calls the foolish, he calls the weak, he calls those that the world wouldn't necessarily recognize or choose first. But those are the kind of people that respond to the gospel. They become what they need to become because of Jesus. The same is true of you. God wants to use you for extraordinary purposes, for his kingdom, for his glory, for his name. The question is, are you going to respond to the gospel call in your life?